Thank you very much, Chair Waters, and thank you for being here, Chairman Powell. In your opening remarks, you stated that you strongly support the maximum employment mandate and that overall the national labor market's healthy. You noted the unemployment rate was 3.9% in December, has ticked down to 3.7% in June. It's actually 2.8% in my home state of Wisconsin. You also noted that employers are hiring lower skilled workers and training them. I view this as a quite positive step. Also in your opening remarks, you identified key risks that you're tracking, including Brexit, trade instability, and rising debt. What I did not hear you bring up is a proposed $15 national minimum wage that some of my colleagues are advocating. As you may know, the CBO recently analyzed this proposal to increase the minimum wage. The report found that a federal minimum wage increase to $15 an hour may cause 1.3 million Americans to lose their jobs. And in a worst-case scenario, 3.7 million Americans could lose their job. That's even more than the entire civilian workforce in the state of Wisconsin, which is 3.1 million workers. How would the Fed respond to the impact of a $15 minimum wage, both on inflation and real wages, as well as the precipitous fall in employment outlined in that CBO report?
We see the question of minimum wage is one that is squarely in your court and not ours. There are many, many studies of minimum wages and their effects on the economy. There doesn't tend to be a consensus, but they do all tend to show, to some degree, some people will lose their jobs and other people will benefit. And so if I were sitting in your chair, I'd be looking at 20 of these studies and I would try to get a sense of what the right trade-off is and whether you would be willing to make it. It's not a question for the Fed, and without knowing, we just don't take a position on that. So, and it's not something. I imagine it would be challenging to make an aggregate assessment without sort of taking a point estimate in what is a highly uncertain range of possibilities.
I appreciate that. Could you even comment if the discussion on the $15 minimum wage would create the type of uncertainty that may slow hiring?
I'm just not going to. It's really not for us to be a referee on the question of the federal minimum wage. We have not done that, and it's just not something we're going to do. Fair
enough. Let me shift gears, Chairman Powell. I'd like to ask you about an issue that's been a major focus for many members of this committee, the International Insurance Capital Standards. In previous appearances, you've assured us that the Fed wants to negotiate an international agreement that works with our regulatory system. As you know, we expect the final version of the ICS to be completed at an International Association of Insurance Supervisors meeting this November. Can you comment as to what instructions you're providing to your staff who are negotiating the ICS to ensure that the U.S. regulatory approach is formally recognized?
So we coordinate very heavily with the Office of Insurance over at Treasury and very much with the state insurance regulators, which is where a lot of the regulation happens in our system, really all the regulation. And I think we're all resoundingly agreed that whatever capital standard is adopted has to work for the U.S. system. The U.S. has a particular system of regulation for insurance companies based at the state level, and anything that gets adopted internationally simply has to work for the United States system, or we can't adopt it.
Is the Fed prepared to then oppose the ICS if it was unsuccessful in achieving formal equivalency for the U.S. regulatory system?
Yeah, I think we're clear that whatever is adopted has to work for our system.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your time today, and I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you.